Welcome to the show, Trent. It's good to finally meet you.
Likewise, my friend. I know we've been talking for a few weeks at this point, and to finally be here in the flesh is a good gig, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I found you through a friend of yours named Jarrett, the soul of Jarrett, and seem like one of the most genuine guys I've ever met. I haven't met you, but like when I hear you speak, it seems like you truly care for people and you truly care, you know, to better your own life. And I was curious, what sparked this, you know, genuineness that you have, if that's a word?
Yeah, no, I'm picking up exactly what you're putting down, and I would have to say that what sparked that was a moment of like ego shattering empathy for other people, and this probably happened when I was 18, and just having a sincere moment of oneness and recognition of connectivity. And like I said, it was very ego shattering stuff right there. And just recognizing that we all have basic needs. We all want love in the end of the day. We all have these wants and needs, right? And who am I to judge another person based on their wants or needs or the skin that they were born in? Who am I to like ever look at somebody judgmentally or see them as separate from me when in the end of the day we are all in this together type of mentality. And um, genuinely that to tie it together, the ego shattering and the recognition that there is no separatism. We might seem separate because we're in different vessels and have different names and locations and cultures and ethnicities, but really in the end of the day we're all just wearing masks and we're all love fueled conscious beings. And if you want to look at it as like we're just love fueled conscious beings, well, we're also the exact opposite of that. And I think that that is our ego, like our hate field, like unconscious, ignorant beings.
Yeah, that was well said.
Both poles of that made me want to find that middle. And um, wanting to find that middle introduced me to Buddhism. And there's been so many different steps along that path, but really what sparked it all and what makes me want to develop myself so that I can serve others and so that others can serve others is simply just from that like ego shattering moment of wow. I might look at you as if we're different, but we're really not different.
Interesting. Do you know what shattered that ego? What experience? Was it a psychedelic trip? Was it a near death experience? Was it just a meditation session or was it just, a gradual shift?
Gradual shift, and it did like accumulate to one night. um there were instances that like I had these internal recognitions about myself when I was sober, and times where I like recognized things about myself when I was high on pot or things of that nature. um but things like my brother came out of the closet to me when I was 16, and that was like, oh wow, I can never judge another person for how they were born or their interests. You can't judge people for their sexuality, their skin color, and things like that. And it's not like I was doing that with malice in my heart, but I was doing that ignorantly because I didn't recognize the fullness of that right from wrong because I saw myself as separate from other people. At that point, it was a competition. At that point, it was everything was an ego competition. Let's put it that way. But I do distinctly remember one of the first times I did ever try LSD, that feeling of connectedness and that feeling of like euphoric love and consciousness. Of course, it's being induced by the drug, but that same essence that was induced really had a nostalgic feel to it from that ego shattering moment. It was like super late at night, middle of the night, standing under the stars type of thoughts of. Um, I wasn't really doing the thinking. It was more like me downloading stuff when my ego got shattered. Let's put it that way. And I would say ever since then, that was when I woke up. And once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. So it's like, might as well put in the work. Might as well do what we're here to do in the first place.
That's so beautiful. It's interesting that it was somewhat gradual, but then it all kind of came to a point in
Hmm.
some sense.
Absolutely. Have you hit that point yourself?
I feel as if I have. I I don't know. When I was in high school, I was way less mature. I didn't really realize as many things about life, and I was pretty judgmental,
Hmm.
like what you were saying, maybe even just ignorantly, like, oh, someone's gay. Oh, they're crazy or they're weird or, you know, this tribalism that's kind of built in. I did judge people based off, how they did or in school or whatever. And, and then I went to college and I happened to actually room with this, in my opinion, very intellectual philosopher, pastor's kid who brings in Christianity, but also brings in a lot of Jordan Peterson. And you might see like this 12 Rules for Life book. That book really changed me, and listening to his podcast and then also taking acid and psilocybin a few times truly showed me that, you know, humans are so valuable. Every single person you run into in life is going to be so valuable, and also is going to teach you so much about yourself and the world. It's like you might as well listen and love them no matter who they are. And it was just truly beautiful. And I've ever since then tried to, you know, I hit that point, but I'm like, there's still so much more improvement on my end and on my mindset to come. And I'm just excited for that growth. I feel like as humans, there's never really a peak. It's always a constant climb. We got to keep bettering and keep learning. And so I'm just truly excited. And that's why I love this podcast, because I just interview people from all over the world and some of my friends too, and just truly just learn and love them.
The one thing that you had said that really stuck out to me there is that the human evolution, individual evolution, is never like there's never a destination to that until the day that you do die. And the fact that you recognize that other people, everybody, no matter who they are, what state they're in, they can bring you some value. Like everybody that you come across, to me, I seriously believe in law of attraction, and that when you come across anybody, no matter what their state is, that is some reflection of you, and you're there to learn from them and learn with them. And it's really on us as individuals more than it is on the collective to sit in that moment and allow ourselves to be humbled by the learning experience. And kudos to you for putting yourself out there so publicly and like, I'm just going to do a podcast and I'm going to publicly humble myself and learn and things like that. And it might not always be a humbling feeling, but it's the same essence. And I admire that about you, my friend. That's awesome.
Well, that means a lot. I appreciate that. Like,
For sure.
in my opinion, I think humility is something that it's one of the aspects that I feel like I try to strive the most to be. Like, I'm not perfect at all, but that's out of all goals. I'm like, I want to be as humble as possible,
Hmm.
because in tandem with that, there's going to be so much learning that comes along with it. And
Definitely. Definitely. I recently had a career shift in my life that has taught
oh,
me how to be humble beyond my wildest imagination, but also at the same time toe my own line. I started, let me put it this way, I have never studied psychology. I took a basic psychology course in high school and college, but as of right now, I am a therapist for mentally ill kids. And I know that that's like, why would they even give a kid like a person like that position? I'm incredibly lucky to be in the spot that I'm at. And I actually moved to Cleveland from Sandusky to start working at this place. But essentially, the kids that I work with, it's a residential facility. So they are there 24/7. And it's essentially like a prison, but with therapy. And every door that they come across is locked. Like these kids aren't allowed to have shoelaces in their shoes, or they're not allowed to wear belts because there's like violence towards themselves or others is always a concern. These kids have come from backgrounds where they're just not able to find placement. Like literally, they got kicked out of foster homes or AWOL'd from foster homes or whatever it might be. Don't have a place to stay right now. They stay with us. We have kids that have PTSD from sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. Like these are all kids who I used to look at and think as people that were strictly undertaught as children. And I still adhere to that belief, but it's more so unloved as children, genuinely. And realizing that about humans, and that we all respond and act in a way to the world based on some of our traumas, like that is a part of almost every decision that we make, because that changes our brain chemistry. And um, just recognizing that within people made me approach everyone with that much more grace, because it like my clients are 11 through 17, but even when they get done with my treatment, they still have to go out and do real work internally and things of that nature. And it just goes with that saying, you never know what battle somebody's fighting internally. So you always want to greet them with that acceptance and greet them with like more grace and ease and patience, because we really don't know what battle anybody is fighting internally. And the entire time that I've been working with these kids, I have been fighting my own internal battles. So like the past 8 months of my life have really been like more intrinsic learning and self development than I've done in the past probably. It's pretty close. Like I'm because I'm always working towards that self development. When I got done with school, I spent 2 years in Sandusky and lived with my parents, which sucked. I love my parents, but like definitely not an ideal situation. Um, Grew throughout that, but I think that the past 8 months living on my own trumps that 2 years that I was in that zone of working and developing myself and things of that nature. It's kind of bonkers how much, once you pull yourself up from where you're comfortable, like Sandusky, home, living with my parents, and like I owned a house there and I was working on it and like working a couple different jobs and running my business and everything. Pull yourself up from that and put yourself in a different space and see how you do. It was like I thought I had me figured out down to a T, but then I start working in this field as a clinician. It literally changed me from the inside out, and blessing and a curse at the same time. But curse, like not at all. Curse, I say, because I've seen some of the true fucking evil that comes from people in this earth when they are so self-absorbed, but that when they bring into another life onto this planet, that they're not willing to put forth the time and effort to grow that. I it that changed me too. It took me a little while to not bring those kids' situations home with me in my heart. And yeah, man, that was a rabbit hole and a half.
Totally good. Man, that's so interesting to hear about. I I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes and analyze what that must be like. Like, I feel like in some sense, you almost have to be on your best behavior. You're this role model to these kids. You almost have to like really walk the walk in the sense. And, you know, I bet that truly keeps you accountable for things. I'm just,
This is a catch with that right there. So I thought it was going to be all walk that walk, right? But if I were to strictly walk that walk, those kids would walk all over me, because they can see right through anything that's fake. Like, because these kids have had to literally protect themselves for their life before age like 10, so they can see through anybody who's being a bullshitter. And I was very, I'm like a chameleon, they didn't see that I was being inauthentic. I wasn't really being inauthentic, but I was really walking that walk. And I recognized that in order to build better rapport, connect with them better, and actually like get what I say to stick with them, it's just so much better to be both that like the best way that I can say it is that yin and yang. I
mm,
like if I'm teaching my kids skills for them to develop, or skills for them to cope with their emotions or their anxiety, and one of them tries to overtalk me or interrupt me, I'm like cordial about it, give them a redirection. But if they start verbally attacking another peer, I will turn around and say, "Who the fuck do you think you're talking to?" And this is not triggering for these kids. This is the environment that they kind of like thrive in. So it's really interesting, man. I wouldn't last at a public school, because that is like how I talk to people as is. You know what I'm saying? That's one other thing, another direction that I would love this conversation to go into, is how much more I learned to create borders for myself and boundaries just from working this job. But to go back to the point of they learned so much better and connected with me better when I was just real with them and didn't try and be that perfect goody two shoes. Now, of course, like I am skillful about how much I self disclose. Like these kids know that I used to smoke pot. These kids know that I've done drugs before. They know some of my traumas. I tell them these so that because they ask me, why do you work here? Like if you're not in psychology or anything like that, you don't want to be a doctor. Like why are you working here? It's like, well, because I give a fuck. I've been in situations similar to yours, but by my own doing. And that personal hell that I was in and I pulled myself out of through the support with friends and things of that nature, I am good at doing that for other people. And that's why I'm here for you right now. It's because I love you. And they're just like, oh, cool. But they see that I'm there because I care, and they see that don't mess with Mr. Trent because he's not one that's gonna take our bullshit. You know what I'm saying? He's just not going to put up with their crap because the crap is what got them in a residential facility in the first place. Like, regardless of whether or not they had horrible parents and a toxic situation or environment that they were coming from, they still need to recognize that people can be both sides of like, hey, I love you and I will sit here while you cry and I will rub your shoulders and we would talk all about it. But don't treat me like a piece of garbage or treat me the way that you're feeling right now. That's not okay. It's really been interesting teaching other people how to cope and deal with their emotions. It just makes me that much better and more skillful about my own emotional use and things of that nature, I guess you could say.
That's great to hear. And you said you wanna talk about how you've had to kinda overstep your own boundaries or creep over boundaries. What do you mean when you say that?
So one of my traumas, and it's a micro trauma. It's not like I was beaten or anything like that. It's just in my household growing up, there had to be an element of people pleasing about me and my brother because there was not always the most steady emotional current going throughout the household. So you got to be on your toes a little bit, right? But people pleasing also ties into the fact that I am a servant unto you. If you are in front of me, I'm here to help you. So it was both recognizing a trauma response within me and also recognizing that I am not always here to wash your toes just because your shoes are off, type thing. um Recognizing like when it's appropriate for me to say no to requests or needs of other people so that I can take care of my own needs or requests. And that even if I don't have a need of my own that needs to be taken care of at that point in time, I still do not have to say yes just because that person is in a position of need. Um, that took a lot of humbling in and of itself to recognize, like, and I don't even want, it was humbling at first to go in there and fulfill every request that was like put upon me by staff members or by these clients that I have. And then it was very empowering to learn how to say no to these people. And this is the reason that I wanted to bring this up, is because I want to encourage yourself and I want to encourage your listeners that it doesn't matter who you're working with, who you're living with, who you're loving. It's okay to say no to those people from time to time for your own mental well-being. And it's okay to go out of your way at the same exact time and say yes to things that you don't necessarily want to when you see that that is a need that could be met for the greater good. But it is up to us as individuals to use our own personal discernment on whether or not that need should be fulfilled. And that in and of itself is a little bit of a game. Um, Mindfulness, being mindful of your own needs at all times, basically. But that's a delicate dance. Life is weird. Like, when do I go from being a servant to serving myself, and at the same time serving myself is serving other people? It's dichotic, man. It's very interesting, really.
Yeah, exactly. I feel I'm quite similar to you in personality trait. Like, I kinda tested that out. I took Peterson's personality test. It's like a big 5, and then it groups all those 5 into 2 other subsets, and a specific one I'm thinking of is agreeableness and then also compassion. I'm quite agreeable. I'll say yes to people a lot, and I'm very compassionate. I'll serve people a lot. I will give and give and give if I want to help people, and I can see that we're similar in those respects. And I've had to go through a similar process of like, okay, if I say yes to all the time, I'm no longer able to focus on myself and actually be a person with a strong foundation and who is bettering my actual self. How can I help others if I can't even help myself? And so saying no, it's sometimes very hard for me to say no to people, but I've slowly been learning like, okay, I need to be selfish here so that I can be selfless moving forward because, selfish, like you said, it's that dichotomy. Being selfish in the moment will help me be so much more selfless later, but at the moment I have needs and wants that need to be met. And I'm sorry I can't help you now, but, you know, I maybe later.
100%. And then even leaving it open to the maybe later. That is that goes a quite a long way with people depending on their need that you can't meet at that time. Maybe later talk to me in 20 minutes, even if it's 2 days, whatever it might be. But I definitely want to touch on the agreeableness and the compassion. I feel that from your energy through this screen, my friend. The compassionate part too. Like and how you again just your voice, the energy you carry, and that's awesome. I dig that.
Yeah, it's like there's pros and cons to having different traits. And, it's for me, it's very easy. And I bet for you too, to like walk up to people and form, relationships with them if you want, like become friendly and start discussions that could go deep. And that can be so useful. But on the other hand, sometimes if I have tasks that I need to complete, and if I spend my time talking and talking and talking and talking and listening and listening for so long to so many different people, I've spread myself so thin. And now I no longer have like, I don't even, I'm not loving myself in a sense. And, you know, it, in some sense in life, you have to be somewhat exclusive, even though it sometimes as a compassionate person, I don't want to. And
100%. To speak on that exclusive point, I and I think you might recognize this about yourself, but you had said like we're similar in the fact that we could go out and make a friend with just about anybody. And I agree, there's no such thing as a stranger. However, I also recognized that skill and how to use it with my focus of when at this point in time, like when I started to hone in on like, all right, I don't want to or need to be friends with everybody. I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. And if I'm going to take the time and energy to communicate and get down to anything with somebody, it needs to be towards one of my purposes, my focuses. And it was actually during a very like it was a microdose trip on my 24th birthday, laying in my living room in Mansfield, Ohio. Between the time I turned 23 and the time I turned 24, I worked 9 different jobs and started 3 companies. All 3 of them are still rocking and rolling today, but like 9 different jobs. I was doing anything that I could to put food on my table and pay my rent. And at the same time, like, what am I actually good at? What would I actually want to do? And it turns out I just want to be an entrepreneur. Like, and on that 24th birthday, my focus, my professional career is going to be put towards beekeeping, public speaking, with a preference on the bee or the public speaking part of things. And like I said, all of my energy started to go towards those types of efforts and like building that foundation of myself. I recognized that I didn't have much of a foundation. My basic needs of like housing and others like food sustenance was being met by other people, and I was being dependent. And I recognized that if I've got my focus, it's okay to be dependent for a little bit, work towards that focus and become more independent. And that 8 months ago when I moved to Cleveland was that first real stroke of independence. I was living on my own in Mansfield, but I was still going to college. I was paying for that college. I was paying for everything. I'm living on my own, but like it was just different. You know, um, the focus and using the energy to create the connections with people, such as you're doing for yourself right now. I think that that is an underestimated quality that people can carry about themselves. However, I just realized a little fallacy in what I just said is that you can't really recognize that quality or hone that quality of communication and focused communication until you communicate in a very unfocused way. You know what I'm saying? That's the beauty of having any sort of success, is that you literally have to have almost the opposite of what it is that you wish to attain before you can experience the real thing. Have you ever experienced like something like that where you got the exact opposite before you got what you were looking for? I know that that's super vague, but
Let's see. Trying to think. Yeah, I guess there's a few instances. One maybe like with my girlfriend. Like I before I was dating her, before I even knew her, I was like I was wanting a girlfriend so bad and I was wanting, a relationship so badly. It was during COVID and I was like, man, I'm lonely. And then I met her, but instead of like dating right away, I realized, there's some things I still need to work on before this can really work. I wanted this so bad, but hold up. There's still some, you still have to work on yourself, hold up, focus on you for a while and then you can, that might be an example maybe.
you did exactly what I did not do. So I literally met the love of my life when I started working at this mental health facility. And this was probably the biggest lesson. It wasn't really the kids that taught me this borders and boundaries thing. It was this relationship. When I met her, she was in a relationship for 2.5 years at that point, right? But we had an obvious connection, obvious feelings towards one another, and little like let it be known that I became the person who I placated to the situation of her being in a relationship in order to court her. Well, when she got out of that relationship, that Trent that she saw isn't necessarily the Trent that Trent is behind closed doors all the time. And acting out in such an inauthentic way, out of the principle of love, was really actually out of a principle of desperation and selfishness. And recognizing that, had I have actually, because like, a very specific boundary that was crossed, time. I would get calls from this woman at 11 o'clock at night, and we would be on the phone until 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm a man that likes to be asleep 11 to 7. You know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't put that boundary in there for myself. And what did that lead to? It led to an inauthentic presence. And that inauthenticity led to like self-defeating principle, or like idealist ideals, and just like, yeah. I that instance right there is what taught me really about boundaries, and always putting your authentic foot forward, no matter who you are trying to impress or get your needs met from, or meet their needs. It doesn't really matter. Just bring both of your full feet forward, because if not, you're doing yourself and everyone around you a disservice. You cannot act out of more self-loathing other than when you act out of what you think you should be, right? And that right there was a pretty blanket statement, and I don't like speaking in absolute, so I would like to retract on those words a little bit, and say that I encourage you to act authentically at all times. Even when you're trying to figure out who you are, that's authentic. It's okay to go out and experiment other things and try other cultures, places, people, whatever it might be. Everybody that you meet, everybody that you come across, you're there to serve and is there to serve you. You're there to learn from each other so that you can ultimately become that better version of yourself. So I just encourage you to have those good boundaries for yourself along that way, homies.
Man, that's inspirational. Yeah. Yeah, one other instance I can think of is with this podcast. In the beginning, I was like, "Oh yeah, I want to be someone who can speak on things clearly and effectively and who is confident behind the mic." And for the first literal probably like 4 months, I was shaking, or like I was nervous. I was stuttering when I was asking people questions. I didn't even like it was just nerve-wracking. I didn't know what I was doing, and but through that period, I've grown slowly and I have a better system down and just it's way more natural. But that's just another instance of like I was expecting it to happen right away and it took multiple months. But
Yeah, that's beautiful. That reminds me of the concept of be do, be do. Have you ever heard that?
Uh-uh.
You can't do anything until you be it, and you can't really be it until after you know what you want to do, right? And being it does not necessarily have to be the physical. It's not the physical embodiment of that action. It's the energetic embodiment of its completion.
One
I
more time
can,
with that.
yeah. So if you want to do anything, you have to be it, and if you want to be anything, you got to know what you want to do. However, when it comes down to being something, it's not necessarily being the physical enactment of that. It's the energetic completion. So
But the
if I want to if I want to be, this is in a real life example. In college I wanted to be an Olympic pole vaulter. If I want to be an Olympic pole vaulter, I have to see myself as an Olympic pole vaulter in my mind's eye and feel that energy as it's already done, right? And then I need to go and do the things no matter what stage I'm at to work towards that, right? Whoops, closely bringing together the divide where I'm at and the completion of it, and they just slowly come together. That's how life works. I never ever gave myself any credit for where I was at. So I stayed here the whole time while my desire just kept coming closer and closer. And eventually it was like repelled it because I never gave any credit or gratitude to where I was at. But the essence of be do comes right back to take the time away from others, from everything, put that boundary up for yourself so that you can sit in that quiet space and encapsulate in your mind, body, and spirit what it is that you are focusing towards. It helps bring people to your path.
That's so interesting. Be do. And, if you try to do that correctly, like you just said, it might bring the people that you need the most onto your path to become who you want to be and should be. And man, it's so interesting.
I got a good question for you. Have you ever heard the saying that which you grasp for eludes you? Like that what you're reaching for is always escaping you.
I may not have heard it. It makes a lot of sense, though.
You gotta like allowing yourself to be. Think of like a hand reaching out and trying to grab something. When you be, you go from doing to being, and you allow it to come into your experience.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, that's I love that visual. It's kind of like a bee. A bee might come to you. Haha. Speaking of bees, I want to
Yeah.
dive into your business and,
Oh,
tease bees. I really am curious about this.
right on,
Tell
man.
me how this started, what sparked your interest, all of it.
Wowzer. Okay, I can do that for you. So first of all, I'm T, and I don't have any bees, but my line is usually I'm T. These are my bees, and I started T's Bees in August of 2017, and it really started about because I had a boss, a mentor, and a friend all in one who I worked. He was the president of his own company, and I was his one employee, and it was great. We actually worked as wastewater treatment operators. So basically, if your house, condominium, apartment complex is not tied to city sewer, you basically have to have your own wastewater treatment plant, and we would maintain those. And I started working that job part time when I was 13, began full time when I got out of college. So my interests in protecting the environment and like the literal science behind that has always been fascinating to me. I would say that I didn't have a lick of interest in entrepreneurship or doing anything on my own other than being an employee until he told me about the benefits of entrepreneurship and being a business owner and things of that nature. After he explained to me that it's a different type of taxing, you can write off your expenses and like all the benefits of running a business and owning a business. I was like, yep, I need to be an entrepreneur. I don't know exactly what kind of business I want to do, but I want to do that. And it was not too long after, and this is where the story gets interesting to me at least. Have you heard of the algae blooms that are going on in Lake Erie or like the Gulf of Mexico or even in the Florida red tides?
LG blooms?
Algae blooms? Yeah,
Mm-mm.
like specific species of algae are blooming that release toxins into the water and kill and absorb an amount of fish, and just like those algae are only necessarily able to live and procreate because of an excess amount of nitrogen and ammonia in the water, and that comes from untreated septic waste, whether that be from people's septic tanks getting cracked open into the ground or fertilizers being get into the runoff water. Wastewater has a huge portion of that pie chart in terms of
Mm.
why is this pollution occurring? It's wastewater. And my boss was actually renovating the way that wastewater could be treated. He was going to be running that nutrient rich water through the roots of various plants. And he's like, if I've got all this water and all this land, I might as well grow stuff like lavender. And he just started listing all these beautiful flowers that you can make oils from. And I was
Oh,
like, hey man, all that needs pollinated. He's like, we could just subcontract that work out to a beekeeper. And I was like, what if I was that beekeeper? And that was the start of T's Bees, man. It was like early July 2017. I was like, hey, I could be a beekeeper and like do this wastewater thing and the bee thing at the same time. It's like that's kind of cool. Um, Initially, T's Bees started out as the idea was two companies in one, actually. Um, my entrepreneurial journey has been kind of bonkers, but needless to say, Have a Hive Incorporated and T's Bees were born on the same day. And T's Bees, essentially, my idea was I'm going to provide pollination to farmers. And I'm going to get a bunch of honey. And I'm going to sell the honey. Have a Hive was if people are willing to send money to abused children or abused animals, or starving children or abused animals, I'm willing to bet that they would sponsor a beehive because save the freaking bees. We need them to eat. And that was essentially the idea of Have a Hive was that we would have a mobile app where people could sponsor the beehive, the beekeeper, and then they would get the honey from that hive. Um, that has transformed into over the past 5 years, went from being a mobile app that allows people to sponsor beehives and beekeepers to being a mobile app that records data for the creation of pollinator plots, the recording of data as to what species of bees you find on those pollinator plots and other pollinators, and as well as like a community event calendar because this is like applying to multiple cities. We're trying to connect Cleveland to Columbus with pollinator plots to start out a regenerative agriculture um, transformation for cities, things of that nature. We really want to focus on urban areas because nobody in urban areas really truly understands where their food how it gets to them in a lot of ways. Like kids think that their food comes from the supermarket, and it doesn't. It comes from the dirt first, boy. Like, come on. um, like I said, over the past 5 years, that's really what Have a Hive has developed into. In that time, I have had beehives on 15 different urban farms in 10 counties across all of northern Ohio, doing education around that beehive. And um, yeah, man, that was a journey. That was a pain in the butt of a journey too, to figure out like I really don't want to put 40,000 miles on my vehicle in a summer type of thing. The idea was that other beekeepers would actually have those hives with me and we would share the load, but that never ever came to fruition. So we went to a more hands off, like let's just create the pollinator plots and people can go out and record data if they want to type stuff. Um, yeah, that's what that became. Have a Hive still rocking and rolling, partnered with a beautiful Columbus organization called the Bee Collective and Tease Bees, the fun stuff, man. The Have a Hive is really just like that's really touching into like my desire to transform communities and provide communities with outlets that get them out into nature and educate them at the same time and put food on their plate. If I can put knowledge in your mind, love in your heart, and food in your stomach, I'm winning at the end of the day. What I always tell people when I'm talking to them about bees. Um, and Tease Bees is just a blast. We went from providing Have a Hive with all of these pollination services to strictly being a supplement company. We produce mushroom honey, and the mushroom honey is extravagant. It is the most pure, raw, awesome Northern Ohio honey that you can imagine. infused with the extracts and medicinal mushrooms that help you with heart health, brain function, anxiety, mood. Like, just genuine supplements that I needed for my own personal health that worked. So I figured, why not make it for other people as well? And it's a beautiful little thing, man.
Man, that's amazing, that journey. I had no idea about Have a Hive, and I knew about Teas Bees, but man, they work in tandem so well, and you're impacting the community, you're impacting yourself and the people who buy from all around the world, it seems like. So you've truly created this beautiful thing that impacts people positively all over.
Yeah, that was the intention. Was like the intention also at the same time. Don't get me wrong. Is like free myself up or put myself in a position to make a shitload of money so that I can do more of that stuff. You know, all
Exactly.
all of my desires really, outside of like wanting to have a jet ski and ride motorcycles and homestead, um, it all just comes back to helping people live a happier, healthier life for themselves. Feel more at home in their skin. Feel more at home on this earth and with their brothers and sisters around them. Um, Lift that veil, if you will, is what I'm trying to help others do. And it just so happens that my job doing that gets a hell of a lot easier when I make a shitload of money. For your listeners, there's 5 ways to make $1 million. Start a business, win the lottery, inherit it, invest it, or marry it. Right? There you go.
There we
If you
go.
can think of a sixth one, let me know. But those are basically the 5 ways to make $1 million. I don't know, that was random, but
No, that's awesome.
yeah.
Yo, tell me about the the mushroom honey. What kind of mushrooms, what benefits specifically do each one of them have? And after, I'm definitely going to purchase each one because I see there's two flavors and I really want to try them out.
Word. There's actually three.
Oh, okay.
Good stuff, man. So we are currently developing a fourth flavor as well, but we'll stick to the three that we've got on stock for everybody. Lion's mane, first up, luscious lion's mane, that is. And of course, it just wants you to make you think of a big, beautiful lion shaking its head with perfectly conditioned hair, right? And lion's mane, I chose that because I have ADHD, and lion's mane is like nature's Adderall in a lot of ways. It just helps you with focus, memory, attention, overall neural connectivity, and the big thing for me was the focus. Um, I have an okay memory, but the focus, like, it really does help induce a flow state when you're on the lion's mane mushroom. And across the board, all the mushrooms I'm about to tell you with, of course, I just like or chose the honey as the base because the beekeeping, and I love honey and the natural benefits of it, and that is a medicine in and of itself. And that is our slogan: is mixing nature's medicine, and taking that honey, mixing it with the mushrooms. It's a beautiful thing. Lion's mane, like I said, is good for the memory, focus, attention. But the chaga, which is our next in line, beautiful earthy taste to it. I feel as if it's probably the least beneficial for me personally speaking on my like in my supplement needs, because the biggest benefactor of chaga mushrooms is that it helps with blood pressure and cholesterol levels, and I have a very healthy heart, thank God, and cholesterol levels as well. The biggest reason that I started doing the chaga was for its antioxidant properties, and it's also just awesome for your immune system. And last but most certainly not least is the reishi mushroom, which is native to Ohio, not native to Ohio, but there are certain species that grow in Ohio and all over Northeast, the Midwest, really. Um, Reishi mushrooms are this beautiful, the red reishi lingizi, the like paramount image of reishi that comes to mind for me. Just this gorgeous, like rainbow shaped, beet dark red to like orange to white yellow. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous mushroom. Enough about its appearance. Here are its effects. Its effects is like it destroys your anxiety. It is nature's Xanax. Also loaded with antioxidants. Also loaded with things like microbials that are good for your gut health. All of these mushrooms help with the immune system. They all are loaded with their own respective vitamins and nutrients, and they're all good for joint pain as well. So it's like a win-win-win per mushroom category. of their benefits, and then just infusing it right into the honey makes them taste a hell of a lot better to me, and they just make me feel that much better with a little bit of a natural energy boost, the sugar to kick with it. Some good stuff, man.
Awesome. Wow. Do you supplement with them daily? Like, what do you recommend to people?
I do recommend daily supplementation with reishi if you have like high levels of anxiety. If you've got any like, it really depends on the extremity of your ailment, I should say, and how much you believe that these products are going to work. And I don't want to say just that, but like it really does have a lot to do with the severity of your ailment. And there is, as with any medicine, I want to say that there's a placebo effect about it. I feel as if, how do I say this? I feel as if the more that you believe it's going to work for you, the better it is going to work for you. But I've done blind tests with the reishi and like people with anxiety and like gave them a stick of honey at Cedar Point and they don't like crowds. Like, eat this and tell me how you feel in 15 minutes. And if it works for you, come back and buy more. And they did just that. And they came back and like were interested in buying more and things of that nature. To be totally honest with you here, the biggest recommendation that I can have about it, as needed, as with any supplement. Um, Severity of your ailment has a lot to do with that. To put it succinctly, I know I went down another little rabbit hole there.
That's what we're here for.
The holes of the rabbits.
Mhm. Yeah, I wonder what those are.
Do you that's hilarious. Do you pay mind to chakras?
I've heard of them. One of my friends who I had on the podcast, he's huge into yoga and also mentions chakras a lot. And, you know, I go to school in engineering. I'm kind of I industrial engineering, like science based. So sometimes when I hear like, you know, that kind of thing, I get a little skeptical and I want to see like evidence supporting it. But,
Yeah.
tell me about it. Tell me what you think about that.
First of all, industrial engineering. I love that. If I were not doing what I do, I would be an engineer in a heartbeat because I love understanding how things work. Like I love that, and then building it. That's just perfect. Kudos, my friend.
Thank you.
But as far as the chakras go, and that another just question like out of the blue, but essentially, you have chakras and you have naktis. Naktis are much smaller energy centers that can be located elsewhere throughout your body, and chakra is a Sanskrit word that translates to energy center. And there are seven that line your spine from the base of your spine to the top of your, actually going through the top of your head. There's what's called the seventh or the crown chakra that's actually sits above you, almost like in a bird's eye view
Mm.
state. But it is like, it follows you, of course. And each of these seven stages, to me, the number seven is beautiful. There's seven areas to self in psychology: physical, financial, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, and sexual. And then if you look at yourself from strictly the spiritual, you can find yourself out pretty damn well if you follow those chakras. And the seven chakras are the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and then the crown. And looking at those, if you were to look at those seven, like stacked on top of one another, starting with the root, ending with the crown, the actions behind those, or the affirmations behind those, are be, have, feel, love, speak, see, and know. Know being your crown chakra, being your root chakra. And the physical sensations, the states of mind, those two things are what a person would look at to determine which of their energy centers might be flaring up. For instance, um, feelings of jealousy are messing with your sacral chakra because that's the have chakra. Somebody else has what I do not have. I'm jealous over that, right? and creating a space of understanding and security within how you be, how you have, how you feel. Like you can really develop yourself around your existence as a conscious being if you follow those seven chakras and what they can teach you and what they, because it starts out with like the root chakra being, it's similar to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you look at that pyramid, very bottom is what? Safety and sustenance, right? Our root chakra, to be, we need to feel secure, we need to feel safe, we need to feel um, acknowledged within ourselves, right? That is the most base chakra because it's our foundation. If we don't have those things, there can be nothing else to build on. Same with that hierarchy of needs. If we don't have safety and sustenance, we can't achieve self actualization. And that self actualization, if we compare the pyramid chart to the chakras, is your crown chakra. It's your connection to the divine, it's your understanding of your source and recognizing that within other people as well. But the fun part is that it's not like once a chakra is opened, it's not like once you've achieved self-actualization that you can't plummet right back down to the bottom of that pyramid. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to invite those situations into everybody's lives, but like to be knocked from my point of self-actualization down to wow, now I need to cover my sustenance and security to be able to rebuild back to where I was. Um, those kind of processes for individuals. I think that that happens to the lucky ones multiple times throughout their life in some way, shape, or form. And it might not always be look like being a millionaire that goes bankrupt and is now homeless. It might look like I just got out of a meditation session and I'm walking into work and one of my clients threatens to kill me. You know what I'm saying? So it don't know exactly where I was going with that, to be honest with you, but I think it was just I don't know why that came to my mind. There's that ADHD for you, man.
That's totally awesome. You explained that chakra science very well. Like, I need to do some more looking into, but like, I can see how, you know, the brain, the eyes, the mouth, the heart, the other ones you mentioned, and I didn't say them correctly, like definitionally, but like seeing how, you know, we're so complicated as a person. We're made up of so many sub personalities. It's another way of looking at it. Like, you
Yeah.
know, a personality of love, anger, hate, jealousy, you know, all kinds of different of these emotions kind of amalgamate into who one is. And, you know, recognizing, I don't want to give too much power to this personality or to this part of myself, but I do want to give more power to this today, or, in this situation or not. And I can see how that can be very similar because I view it through personality traits, but through these chakras, that's almost a similar way of seeing it in some sense.
Well, it the chakras themselves carry certain personality traits. You know, if somebody's rooted in if they're based in their root chakra, they're going to be a little bit more defiant and going to be a little bit more closed off towards other people. But if they're rooted in their throat chakra, they're going to be extremely expressive and creative. And people who are rooted in their heart chakra are probably nurses. You know what I'm saying? But it is amazing to me how much one's personality that they're giving off at any point in time is affected by emotions. That's one other thing that like really truly blew my mind of working with these clients is like we have three states of mind. We have a rational one where we think of everything based on thoughts. I mean, we think of everything based on facts, right? We don't use subjective information when we're in our rational mind. And then we have our emotion mind, which is like strictly based on our own subjective experience. Like, I feel this, and this is how I want to act because I'm angry, right? Rational mind, emotion mind, but then we have our wise mind that brings those two together. And the decisions that we make when we are in our emotional mind are almost always horrible. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of like those are the kind of decisions of sending a 3 a.m. DM to your crush of like, "Hey, you up?" Like that emotional decision of like, and the next morning you read it, you're like, "Why the hell did I send that?" Like shit. No, I must have been in my feels type thing. And yeah, it's just funny how much we differentiate the presence that we bring to other people based on the emotion that we're feeling. Beautiful thing about that is that we actually have control and input over the feelings or emotions that we're experiencing.
Yeah, that's interesting. And using just rationality as a tool is also can lead to poor decision making as well. Like, you know, it might rationally make sense for me to, just write this person off because, they're going to spend, because, I'm on a mission of something else. I'm just going to write them off. It doesn't make, the pairing of the emotional and the rational together. I love how you said that, the wise part of your mind or the wise mind.
Yeah, buddy, it's that middle path.
Exactly. The yin and yang,
Yep. Yep. Beautifully
man.
put. Is this
Man,
5 minutes left in our meeting apply to us?
I'm not sure. I've not run into that. I was actually trying to quick notice or see what I could do to change that, but I also think we kind of went ended at a good point if we wanted to end now. But if you wanted to continue, I'd be willing to continue as well.
I tell you what, my man. I think I am gonna hop off because I do want to work out this evening.
Perfect
But
idea.
before we go, I want to share one of my favorite quotes with you.
Perfect.
I want to hear one of your favorite quotes too.
Awesome. I'm in. Go ahead.
The Dalai Lama said that. Do I want to share that one? Let's go with this one. Ben Franklin said, "That which you obtain too easily, you esteem too lightly." AKA, easy come, easy go. If you get it too easily, you're not going to give a shit. So if you're going to get something, make sure that you give a shit for it so that it sticks around. And I'll throw the Lama one in there too. Why not? But the
Sure.
more that you are motivated by love, the more fearless and free your action will be.
Man, both of those are great. I'm gonna record that. It's recorded. I'm gonna write that down. Have
Nice.
that ready.
Oh yeah,
That's
man.
amazing. Yeah, I'll give two as well. You know,
Perfect.
first one actually comes from the Bible, and it's kind of interesting, but it's called the beginning of wisdom, or wisdom become, geez, wisdom begins with fearing of the Lord. In some sense, and I don't, everyone has a different definition of what God might be. It's a complicated route, but the main reason I bring that up is because I feel as if when you recognize that you are limited as a human and that there's sources outside of you and you're beholden to things that you don't understand and have no idea about. It forces you to be wise and humble. And when you're humble, you become wise. When you recognize that you're ignorant, you learn so much. It's like I was mentioning before at the beginning. And it ties in with this Jordan Peterson quote that says, assume the person you're listening to knows something you don't. And that it all kind of ties together. Like when you take a humble approach on life and in conversation,
Yeah,
you are now a wise person in some sense, even though you're aware that you know very little.
that was beautiful. That was profound. I don't know why that hit me so hard. The Bible quote of like wisdom begins when you like have a recognition of fear for the Lord. It's like it's true though, because if you didn't have any fear for any of the consequences of what you do, like you're gonna act strictly out of ego and your own best interest. It's like, wow. Yeah, man. I dig that. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all your thoughts, man. You are a philosopher, an entrepreneur, a friend of mine now. I'm glad I met you.
Likewise, brother. I hope to meet you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, we are not far away. I should make the trip out
But
to
no,
the bees.
really not.
Yeah, I honestly will plan a trip out. Sounds great.
Beautiful. And if I ever come up to Michigan, man, we can because where is Kalamazoo relative
It's
to
it's southwest Michigan, kind of 3 hours away from Detroit. So I'm
okay.
on the farther side, but yeah,
So if I were to go to the very like top left corner of Ohio and then cross over,
probably. Yeah,
nice.
I need to see a map, but yeah, amazing, Trent. Thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to future interactions with you, my brother. I appreciate you.